Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of NintendoFuse's Industry Talk. I'm your host, Barry, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Kyla Fury from EVC Games. Kyla?
Hello, everybody.
Now, Kyla, your studio, EVC Games, just put out a title. It's called Wintermoor Tactics Club. It is out on PC, Xbox One, PS4, and of course the Switch, all available now. And we're going to get into a little more in depth on that game. But first, let's talk a little bit about you. What's your background in games?
Sure. Well, in terms of playing games, like very, long ago when I was a tiny wee child, I had the original Nintendo and, Mario and Zelda. Um, got sort of like worked my way up through. I stopped playing around the Sega Genesis in terms of consoles, and I had this like big gap. And then the Christmas after my 16th birthday, I got Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy X for the PlayStation 2 for my birthday. And I was like, oh, hey, look, like games can do complex, interesting narratives now. Look at that, like storytelling. Because I had always wanted to be a writer. So I got really into like game narrative and like how games tell stories. And I ended up going to undergrad and majoring in computer science and creative writing as sort of a dual thing, and then going to grad school at the USC Game Design School for interactive media. So getting my master's in game design. Then I worked with a little company doing, like kind of mobile and web game stuff. And then after moving up to Seattle, got together with some friends who were like, hey, we've been thinking we might kind of want to do this like interesting narrative game. You want to do writing on it? And that's how I got to Wintermore. So
That is an awesome journey. Tell us a little bit about EVC's background and who you guys are made up of and how you guys started.
sure. Well, so it's sort of the brainchild of our like director and CEO, Ben Walker, and so he, worked for some larger game companies for a while. Saved up some money and was like, I really want to do like a project that's sort of just for me. And he really likes tool building. Like that's his thing as a programmer, is he loves making tools. And he's like, I want to make a bunch of like bespoke game design tools as a part of a game making process. So let me get some friends who are like more designery and we'll make a game together. And at first it was going to be like, this 6 month to a year project of like, oh, we're just gonna, it's gonna be a quick little thing. I'm gonna bring on this like artist and we're gonna, make a game together. And I'll get my friend Mike and he'll, do a little bit of writing, maybe some music. It'll be done in like 6 months to a year, and we all go our separate ways. And it didn't turn out that way. So, like with the concept artist, they came up with this idea of like, what if we had a game that's based on the Final Fantasy Tactics tutorial where there's like a snowball fight, because that's like a really cute sort of moment in that game. And the concept artist drew up some like images of these three characters. They're like, all right, it's like in a boarding school. It's set in the 80s. They're in some kind of like, tactical games club. Um, and then it sort of sat there for a while. I think the original concept artist left, and then Mike, the other writer, came on to do music. And he's like, I'm going to do music. I don't want to write your whole game for you because I don't have time to do both writing and music. So I'm just going to do music. And Ben's like, sure, just do music. And then they started doing it, and Mike was like, this game really needs a story. We got to do some writing. So he brought me on because he and I are close friends. We went to school together. And so then I started doing the writing, and it ended up being kind of a huge job. So Mike ended up also doing some of the writing as well, in addition to the music. And then it ended up being like 3 or 4 years after that we were working on the game. So, during that time we brought on an artist who, brought on some additional contract artists. We brought on a combat designer. And it still ended up being a pretty small team. It's still like half a dozen people who basically made the game. But yeah, I brought on a friend of mine to be the producer, and we did, we worked on it until we thought like, okay, actually we made a good thing and we can release this to people. And our producer was a huge help in like actually getting it out the door and making sure we didn't just work on it forever.
Well, yeah, sometimes, you start on those small projects and you think this is just going to be a small thing, and it turns into quite the endeavor. And wow, to hear 4 years, that, it's a labor of love at that point. You really
Yeah.
just want to make it.
Yeah, and in the last like half a year or so, half a year to a year, we signed with a bigger publisher. We signed with Versus Evil, who did publish Banner Saga and Feria and Pillars of Eternia and some other stuff. And so they gave us, funds to do marketing and to kind of finish off the final polish on the game. And
That's awesome. Well, while we're talking about the game, why don't you tell us just a little bit about it? Because we've talked a little bit about Wintermoor Tactics Club and a little bit about the snowball fight mechanic. But why don't you give the premise of the game for those that are, hey, I've never heard of this game before.
Sure. So Wintermoor Tactics Club takes place in 1981 in a little northeastern boarding school called Wintermoor Academy. And the star of the game is Alicia. She's like a little nerd who, goes to this school, and she and two friends are the only members of this club called the Tactics Club, which plays Curses and Catacombs, which is their little version of Dungeons and Dragons.
I like that.
And they're kind of they're the nerd group, so that's but they're used to that. They're kind of used to their place on the social hierarchy, and they're happy just playing their games and surviving high school. And then one day, the principal of the school, sort of out of nowhere, announces this mysterious snowball tournament where every club in the school must participate in the snowball tournament. And if you refuse to participate, or if you lose in the tournament, then your club gets disbanded and you're not allowed to do that hobby or hang out with those people again. So it's, for high school, this is like really big stakes. So they, thinking about it, they realize that they can use the knowledge they've gained from tactical combat in their tabletop game in this snowball tournament. So the bulk of the game is partly a mystery, trying to figure out why the principal is doing this, and sort of what the secret behind the snowball tournament is. And part of it is like reaching out to the other clubs after they've been disbanded and kind of recruiting members of those old clubs into your team, and like reaching out to people and giving them a place to belong and feel welcome. And you end up writing some like custom tabletop campaigns for you. We actually let the player like customize the tabletop games. And and so it's a game about sort of friendship and self-identity, and about like reaching out to others to find common ground. We like to say it's a metaphor for the modern internet, because it's about how sometimes when we're we get really involved in a group, your identity becomes wholly subsumed in that group, and you think of yourself as like just this one thing, and other people think of you as just that one thing. But actually, people are more complex, and we need to reach out across different groups and sort of, get to know each other as complex human beings.
That's very true, and it's such an interesting premise too, because your way you phrased it is, in high school this is a big deal, and I think all of us, we think back to those days, and oh my God, what was such a huge deal for us then is nothing now. It's like, wow, that has zero effect on the rest of my life, but there it was world changing. It's like a Hunger Games style situation here,
Yeah.
where I'm really interested to know why, and I don't have to spoil it, but I hope this is addressed, why the principal just suddenly decided to pit all these clubs together, and B, how they're going to enforce you can't hang out with these, your friends anymore, and see, what's the school going to be like with one club left?
So it's called the Ultimate Club. The principal states that he's looking for the ultimate club, but he refuses to explain what that means. I mean, there is something behind why the snowball tournament's happening. There is this sort of like dark secret on the campus that you need to learn about, that the principal is somehow involved in. I won't spoil what it is, but we do get kind of like a little absurdist and over the top. It's that's my and Mike's sense of humor tends to be very like absurdist and like wacky, and sometimes sometimes kind of dumb joke, but in a, I don't know, it's a very specific sense of humor. I recommend, if you want to get a sense of the sense of humor, find a Let's Play where someone's reading the descriptions of all the books in the library, because that's a good like microcosm of our sense of humor.
Nice.
But there's, what was the second question? The second question, oh, how do they enforce it? So I mean, they kind of don't. Like we definitely have a bunch of characters that are like hanging out together that are like, don't tell the principal we're still hanging out, and like, or the principal comes in and he's like, why are you kids still here? Like, this is not what disbanding a club means. But they do control presumably like the club budgets and enforcing whether they have to wear their uniform or they're allowed to wear special clothes for their club and things like that. Because for instance, we have the historical reenactment club, and one of them is reenacting caveman days, so he's always wearing like a big caveman, like Flintstone style pelt. And he like says that he ordered a new uniform but lets it get like conveniently lost in the mail, so he doesn't have to wear the uniform.
That's fantastic. See, I like that kind of humor. Now, one of my favorite things, just from when I'm looking at this game, is the ability to recruit other people into your club, and I love that aspect of talking to people because everyone's different. It's not just I'm assuming it's not just like walk up to person, recruit yes, no, and they instantly or yes, no. Maybe you have to do something or encourage them and get on their good side. What's that mechanic like?
Yeah, so we kind of took some inspiration from like Persona 4 for that. This sort of like you need to, it's not just, yeah, as you say, like walk up to someone and recruit them. It's more like after their club's disbanded, a part of their identity is a little bit like lost from them, so you kind of have to learn about them and like learn what their personal issues are, and then you write a campaign that like helps them deal with their internal personal problems, and then after you play that campaign with them, they'll join your group. And obviously like how they play in the game is based on what club they come from to some extent.
Okay.
So for instance, like the equestrian club member is your like mounted combat character.
Oh, that's so cool. You have a rocketry club in there, with using mortars and stuff as rockets.
Well, so spoilers, but slight spoilers, but the equestrian club may or may not have a science project that
Oh boy.
that involves some things like that.
You're combining multiple clubs here. I don't know. Principal may not like this.
Yeah, some of the clubs are a little out there. Like the first club you face in like the opening chapter is the Young Monarchists, who are really excited to bring monarchy back to the United States. And then the second club is the Psychic Detectives, and they're the first club that you recruit from. So they're basically like a group of anime protagonists as a club.
You don't get anyone from the monarchists, huh?
No, they're kind of the like heels, right? They're like designed to be the first club that you're like, okay, like these guys are clearly like terrible, not terrible people, but they're jerks. Like,
It'd be cool if you could recruit one of them and all he does is act like the king or queen and tries to order you around, but everyone ignores him.
I mean, that sort of happens actually with the first character from the Psychic Detectives, because her whole deal is that she's like this like really gung ho character who's very like excited about things, and her club was going to save the world, and since you disbanded them, now she's going to make sure your club saves the world, and so she like tries to come in and take charge. And
Oh, that's so cool. I love it. So the game is complete, but I want to know what updates are planned for this. I mean, is there going to be DLC? Is there going to be added content, or is it just going to be more like performance updates?
well, yeah. So there's performance and bug fixes stuff. Obviously, we're working on as much as we can. As I said before, it kind of depends on like how well it does and how much people like want want stuff. We'd really love to do. We've had a few ideas for some like DLC club fights, like some clubs you never actually get to face in the tournament because they like get knocked out before you get to them. That would be like really fun to face, some like secret hidden mini boss stuff type things.
Like
But
that.
I don't, again, it depends on if if we make enough money to be able to fund something like that.
Well, I certainly hope you do, because I'd love to see these ideas come to light. And even just getting to this stage, many projects never get this far. So that's awesome. I know you guys, I believe it was PC first, and then afterwards you brought it to consoles. What was it like? Because I know all the system architecture is different. What was it like going from PC to the three major consoles at the moment?
So luckily, we managed to kind of skirt around that a little bit. Our publishers got us put together with Kitaface, who does a lot of like UI UX work, but they also do porting. Like that's one of their big thing is like helping with ports. So we actually had like a second company come in and sort of help us adapt all the necessary things needed for porting. How all of the UI UX changes for different control schemes and things like that. So I know Ben, our director slash programmer, did end up doing a lot of work to make sure all of the console related bugs are fixed and things like that. But luckily we didn't have to do it all ourselves. We had help, and that's one of the nice things about having a publisher, right? Is they have a lot of connections to people who like can help you do ports and can help you do localization and can help you do like all of the extra myriad things you never think about that come right at the end of a project like this.
Well, it's great that now it's on all these systems, because not everybody is a PC gamer, and now you can reach a broader audience. But you just mentioned, a publisher to help you do all these things. And I have to ask this, I always ask this of every single developer I talk with. Um, what about a physical? Will we see a physical version of the game on our shelves?
I would love that. That would make me super duper happy. I don't know if it's in the cards. It kind of a lot of stuff about, what happens in the future depends on the audience, right? It depends on who we reach. Like, do we have enough people who would be excited about, buying something like that to make it worth producing it? Do we have enough people, excited about the soundtrack to be worth selling the soundtrack? Do we have enough people excited in different languages to like port to those languages? Do we have enough people like really, buying the game generally to be worth doing like DLC for combat, extra combat encounters and things like that? So it's kind of up in the air. It's like, well, I guess we'll see what happens. We'll see how it sells.
Now that EVC has put out this Wintermore, and obviously doing the bug fixes and quality of life and stuff, what's the next project for you guys? Have you guys thought about where you're going?
Yeah, we've thought about some stuff. We're kicking around a few ideas, but it's kind of in the like early enough stages that it's nothing I can like actually talk about in any official way, because there's just so much up in the air in terms of what we can do, what we can find funding for, like what's available to us, that kind of stuff. So
At
yeah,
least
we'll
stuff
see.
is there. Stuff is in the
Yeah,
cards,
we'd
right?
love to make another game. Like, we enjoyed working on this one. We're all pretty good friends. We'd love an opportunity to make the next thing. What and whether that thing is, we'll see.
Awesome. So now I like to ask this question to developers as well when I get to talk to them. What would be, if any publisher or any developer came to you and your team and said, "We want you to make the next installment in blank," what would be your dream job? Like any game franchise, any developer, they want you to handle the absolute next one. What would you love to do?
So, like specifically, like an existing franchise that we'd be allowed to helm.
Well, you can do that, or I mean, if there's a particular dream game you'd love to make that's its own IP, I mean, that works
Oh
too.
yeah, no, I've had a since college. I've had like a dream game that I'm like desperately wanted to make. I'd love to make a racing RPG.
Ooh.
I've always thought that like I love racing games as a mechanic, but I kind of hate the culture around racing games because it's all like really hardcore car enthusiasts, which like is fine. That's a great hobby. Like nothing against people who like that, but like I'm not really into like cars. Like it's not, it's not exciting to me that I get to like drive a brand name sports car and see how like shiny it looks. I love the gameplay of something like a Mario Kart, where it's like cartoony and fun and weird. And I'd love to make a game with that kind of like juicy, like cartoony racing mechanics, but with a strong story and with like a lot of customization, and pieces like that. That's like my dream game.
Did you
that
ever
I'd like to make.
play Diddy Kong Racing on the
Everyone
64?
tells me like
Yeah,
that's the thing to reference that I have to go do. I haven't played it yet, but
yeah, it's on DS as well.
I
But
still
yeah.
will.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah. It has got an awesome adventure mode with a hub world, and you do races and bosses. And I haven't played it, but I heard Crash Team Racing is very similar in that regards. So yeah, definitely check those out. Maybe they'll give you some inspiration for your
Yeah.
car
No,
RPG.
the trick is finding like a top quality physics programmer who can help you make like a real juicy racing physics, because that is a lot harder than it sounds.
Yeah, that definitely you want balance too. You can't have like that one
Yeah.
racer. You can't have the odd job of racers, so to speak, where it's just too unfair. And if you get that reference, that's awesome. If you don't, then you didn't play GoldenEye growing
I
up.
was gonna say it's gold. I know I didn't play GoldenEye, but I do know it's a GoldenEye reference.
Yes, it's absolutely a GoldenEye reference. So in addition to doing all this great work on EVC, you've informed me that you're also a host on a podcast called the Feedback Force Podcast. It's about game design, analysis, and reviews and stuff like that. Why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about your podcast?
Sure. Yeah. So the podcast is called the Feedback Force. It's myself and two other hosts, and we basically run it like a book club, where we pick a game and then we spend 2 weeks playing it. We invite the audience to play along with us and come discuss it on our Discord, or be guests on the podcast if they want. And then we meet and we sort of discuss, like how we felt about the game, like what we thought was effective or not effective, what we thought they were going for. We kind of do some game design analysis. We play a lot of indie games, mostly because we try and keep our titles like under 15 hours, since we only have 2 weeks to play them. So that like it's like less than $15 and less than 15 hours, tends to lower the subset of games that you're able to play. But yeah, so we enjoy talking about them. I think we just finished Superliminal, and we're about to play Rocky.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I don't know, like we've been doing this a few years. We're like 100 and some episodes in at this point, so
Wow.
it's a big backlog if you if you want to hear us like analyze some older indie games. So
Hey, that's awesome. It's a great premise too. And if that's something you are all interested in, you can actually go listen to it on SoundCloud at Feedback Dash Force. And if you have Twitter, you can follow the podcast at Feedback Force, no dash there. That's awesome that you're also involved in that. It's great to just be, really involved in the industry in multiple ways
yeah, and
and
you know
show your
what?
passion.
It's given me like a great opportunity to play a bunch of games that I never would have played. There's nothing like having a deadline every 2 weeks to like force you to play stuff that's on your Steam list for like
Oh,
months and months and months. So
absolutely. Now, do you mainly play on Steam, or do you play on consoles as well, or?
we tend to play stuff that's at least available on Steam, just to give the widest possible like number of people a chance to play it, in case they like don't have a console of one type or another. But we have played some stuff that's like available in multiple places, and then it's up to you which place you played on, and then we often end up like comparing. Oh, like so you did it mouse and keyboard, I did it controller. Like, how does the experience differ, and like what do you think is probably better, and things like that. So
That's really cool. Yeah, it's great to get those different perspectives. So before we wrap up, is there anything you would like to say to all the watchers and the listeners about Wintermoor Tactics Club? Like your one pitch. Like if someone's on the fence, what would you like to say to them to say, yeah, give this game a shot?
yeah, well, so I think we worked really hard to make a game about sort of, you know, inclusivity, and, like have a diverse game that is about reaching out, but also to make it feel like cozy and warm and like a happy place to spend some time. So I like to think, in our modern, very stressful lives at this moment, where there's a lot going on, If you need a little bit of a break, you need something to sort of feel like a warm blanket and a cup of hot cocoa and like make you feel good about humanity for a little bit, like I think, we might be the game for you. It's also great to play like with families, because it's we like to think of it as, we tried to make it accessible as someone's first tactics game if they've never played tactics before. So if you're like, a parent who likes strategy games and like wants to introduce the genre to your kids, or, someone who like hasn't picked it up before and wants a couple game where you can like play together and talk about strategy and stuff like that, it's a great game to play together with people that you care about, that you've been stuck inside with for several months maybe.
Well, that's great. And yeah, Wintermoor Tactics Club, it is the tactical RPG. It's got those visual novel elements. It's got the recruiting elements. Really, really great. It is on PC right now. It is on Xbox One. It's on PS4, and it is on the Nintendo Switch. So absolutely check out that game. If you want more information, you can go to their official webpage, which is wintermoretc.com. If you'd like to support them on social media at Twitter, you can go to Wintermoor TC. And for more with Kyla, and you want to follow her, her Twitter is Kyla_go. Kyla, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And remember, for all your Nintendo news, go to NintendoFuse.com and check out our YouTube for more industry talks like this, our bi-weekly podcasts, game chats, and a bunch of other content. Thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful day and take care. Bye.